article is I could make Fart Fart Booby Fart the game and maybe it would eventually get taken down. And let me explain what this means, because no, they don't have an intention of making Fart Fart Booby Fart the game, but they're using such an absurd title to make a point. And I think you'll understand the point as we go. Okay, so there's something goofy going on over on the PlayStation Store and the Nintendo eShop. Over the last few months, the storefronts have been slowly filling up with what some users are referring to as slop. I'm sure you guys have seen it. Whether you're into the hentai games or not, there's a difference between quality hentai games and hentai AI puzzle slop. There's also a difference between actual games and fake games with an AI landing page. Kotaku and Aftermath have both detailed this problem, highlighting how the eShop specifically, although it is in the PlayStation Store as well, just to a lesser extent, seem to be advertising more and more games that are using a combination of generative AI and misleading store pages to trick users into purchasing cheap, low-quality games that aren't what they claim to be. This problem has recently spread to the PlayStation Store as well, filling the games to wish list section in particular with lots of weird looking stuff, some of which we will look at after, because there was an example. We will look at Sex Shop Simulator, which honestly is actually kind of a banger idea, but not like this. Critically, the games in question aren't just run-of-the-mill bad games. Unremarkable games get released every day on every storefront and have just as much right to be there as any other game. You know, if a lot of work is put into making a bad game that's just bad, the dev has every right to release it. But there's a difference between bad games and games that are made to be slop and trick people into spending money when they know there's no quality there. What do you mean even RPG Maker H games have more integrity? Listen, for some people, RPG Maker H games are like top tier quality content, okay? Listen, anyway. The so-called slop games are usually sim games, most always on sale perpetually, like just always on sale, there's no regular price. Often play on themes used by other popular games like TCG Card Shop Sim, now you see TCG Sim, Card Shop Sim, My Trading Card Store, or whatever they want to call it. Or even rip off their concepts and names entirely. Often use hyper-stylized art and screenshots that stink of generative AI, and usually in practice don't look or play anything like what the storefront images promise, so it's literally a scam. They're often janky, with poor controls and numerous technical issues, and often include very few features or anything interesting to do at all. Sometimes they don't even run, they're just broken. What's more, as various users have pointed out, these games are often churned out mercilessly by a very small handful of companies, which is the key. These companies are not being blocked. They can release fake game after fake game after fake game, and they just keep making money because they know it works. They know even if the game gets taken down or blocked, they'll make money before it gets taken down. And as YouTube creator Dead Domain found out when they did a deep dive into the issue, these companies are seemingly impossible to track down and hold accountable, having little to no useful public websites or business information. Some even seem to be changing company names every so often to obfuscate things even further, so that if they get caught, or if someone goes after them, they, 1, might not realize it's the same person, 2, might not realize it's all the same company. In recent months, there's been a growing outcry from users of both stores to get some degree of regulation on these storefronts and tone down what's being referred to as AI slop. This is especially true in light of consumer complaints regarding the terrible technical performance of Nintendo's eShop, which is true. I'm sure you guys have had this happen, where you go into the eShop, you just want to browse or find a specific game, and it barely runs. When the eShop already barely functions, bogging it down with a bunch of broken games that don't even work and are just meant to scam people is not helping the situation any at all. Now it seems to be running slower and slower every day as more and more games clog up each page. In an effort to get some answers on what's happening and what can be done about it, I looked into how these games are ending up on these storefronts en masse in the first place. Why PlayStation and Nintendo storefronts are especially egregious? I don't know how to say that right now. Why Steam is seen as inoffensive from a user perspective. You can self-submit on Steam. People expect stuff like slop on Steam. Steam is very much the creator first in a way. especially now that Greenlight is removed. So it's a little bit easier. So like you expect to see some slop on Steam, which is why the platform itself is given a bit more forgiveness. Also, the browsing is a lot easier. It's not slow when it actually runs anyway, and why Xbox's store is relatively unaffected. The magical world of CERT! I spoke to 8 individuals in game development and publishing, all of whom requested anonymity out of fear of platform holder reprisal. All of them had recent extensive experience releasing games on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch in various combinations. Together, their accounts help me better understand the process for actually getting a game released on any of the 4 major storefronts. Knowing a bit more on how you can publish makes it make a bit more sense. Which perhaps offers a clue as to why some game stores are suffering from more slop than others. Steam will also try to push stuff you're oh my god, I can't read. So if you're interested on to the homepage. Yeah. Also, thank you, Brandon, for sharing this. Very, very generally, the process for all 4 storefronts roughly goes something like this. First, a developer or publisher has to pitch to Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, or Valve who they are and what they want to ship on the storefront to gain access to development backend portals and, in the case of consoles, dev kits. From there, the developer or publisher fills out forms describing their game and what it entails. Platform holder paperwork tends to ask questions such as whether the game is single or multiplayer, if it requires an internet connection, what controllers it uses, and other technical elements. Then it's on to CERT, or certification, or lot check. All are roughly the same process. Where the platform holder checks to... See, I cannot read today! My brain is so tired! If the build fits platform requirements. These are very specific technical requirements. So it's not necessarily like, is the game good? Is it worth publishing? Is it playable? It's technical requirements, such as checking what happens if a save is corrupted, what happens if a controller gets disconnected during gameplay, and so forth. Hopefully, you can see a lot of the requirements for Steam and Xbox, specifically on their respective public pages. Nintendo and Sony do not publish their requirements. You have to try harder to get that information. Only devs really have that. I don't even know if devs would have all of the requirements, or if they'll just find out if they didn't meet them, but maybe if there's any devs who tried, they can clarify. The process also checks to ensure games aren't breaking any laws, such as including a red cross on a white background in violation of the Geneva Convention, which a lot of old games did, but anyway, and are accurate to their ESRB ratings. Multiple people I spoke to emphasized that platform holders are especially strict about age ratings, and that any change or seeming discrepancy can immediately and massively halt a game's release. A common this is the key thing that you have to understand, that I didn't understand until seeing this. A common misconception amongst gamers, I don't know why they said the gamers, I don't know. Is that CERT is tantamount to a QA check. It's not. It's not quality assurance. A few people I spoke to noted that lot check CERT process is often misunderstood by gaming audiences. A common misconception among the gamers, I'm like barfing at the way they're writing this, unless it's actually a trademarked thing. And even inexperienced devs, is that this is tantamount to a QA check, said one publisher. This is incorrect. That it's responsibility of the developer or publisher prior to submission. The platforms check to make sure the game's code complies with hardware specifications. So, yes, AI slop can pass the quality check because it's not looking for quality. It's assuming the devs have already checked this. It's just checking if the game is gonna break your console. If a game passes, it's ready to be released. There's no QA check. Amazing! If it fails, it's kicked back to the developer or publisher and has to be resubmitted with the issues fixed. Multiple people I spoke to told me that they rarely receive concrete information from platform holders on how to resolve submission failures, so I guess they just have to magically figure it out. But anyway, they usually only received error codes. Nintendo especially was mentioned by several as frequently rejecting games and offering little to no clear explanation as to why. We will touch on that point again in a bit. Front and center, as for the store pages themselves, those I spoke to told me that all the platform holders do have requirements of some kind, asking developers and publishers to use screenshots that accurately represent the game they're selling. But as we know, that's not happening. I'm told are largely just checked to ensure there's no competing imagery. For example, something with like PlayStation or an Xbox. So they're not really actually checking if your image for the store accurately represents the game. They're only checking if the image that you're using isn't showing competing systems or anything illegal. And one person did have a story about a review catching a screenshot that didn't represent the game in question, but it's not all the time necessarily. Only one of them has like reported it at least. I'm not going into full detail for that section because I don't want to take too much time, but I did want to talk about this a bit. You can look at the full article if you want to read it all, but for the most part we know that they're not looking for quality or even to see if it matches necessarily. So developers get to ask for forgiveness instead of permission. That's essentially what we're in. A culture where putting games on platform, you don't have to ask permission. You can just do it. You can ask for forgiveness later if you mess up. A lot of them go on making games knowing that it's breaking TOS or different ideas, but they somehow get through filters. We will look at a great example of this in a tiny bit. Okay. So, and even when a store page is checked, the standards for what counts as an accurate representation of the game are loosely defined enough that plenty of games can slip through the cracks. So, you see a lot of slop. As I said, it's often in the simulation games, but usually if they're caught having a game up with misleading screenshots or things like that, they're not necessarily told like, hey, you have to take your whole game down or we're gonna shut down your company. You just have to take down the offending content. So after you already scammed a lot of people, you can just change the images and like maybe you're good to go. Or you're risking being delisted if you don't correct it. But that doesn't change the fact that people have already been scammed. And that's only, as I said, that's only if the platform holder even notices, which they often do not. But apparently Steam does have a section where the developers have to disclose if it's using generative AI. And I know a lot of people criticize Steam for that because they saw it as like enabling generative AI, but the other platforms have really showed that what it means is we know that it's going to get through the cracks anyway. So at least if there's a filter, people who don't want that, if you have to disclose that you've used it, can block that content from being shown. So I do appreciate that. That is one great thing that Steam is doing. Anyway, the eShop to eSlop. Since the eShop is one of the worst offenders. With that very generalized outline of the process out of the way, the question remains, why are Sony and Nintendo store pages being flooded with what seems to be misrepresented, low-effort sim games using generative AI on other store pages? Why is Xbox not impacted? Why does no one care that Steam also has a lot? Mainly because the filter, they can turn it off. Multiple developers explained that while Nintendo, Sony, and Valve all have applications to vet and blah, 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 Microsoft is the only company that vets on a game-per-game basis. This means, like, as much as we want to criticize Xbox, that's a big deal. This means that the former three, once you've been approved once, it's much easier to simply pump games out onto the storefront because basically you're an approved company, so now you can upload more stuff. As long as it can pass the CERT or lot check. But Xbox, you can't just be an approved company. You have to get every single game approved. And that should be happening everywhere. But it's not. That's why sometimes if you make one game, even if it's bad, but you made one game that passes, your next games can get through without being as heavily inspected. So that's kind of crazy. So as I said, for Nintendo and PlayStation, it can be more approving on a developer-by-developer basis, and then just looking for specific platform violations in a game instead of checking the quality or anything like that. I love how they just flat out admit that Nintendo is the easiest to scam. They could just make fart, booby, fart the game, and maybe it would eventually get taken down, or it won't. As we've seen, because I swear most weeks there's multiple AI hentai games put up. Multiple! Not even one! Not even the odd one where it's like, oh, how did this get here? It's like you expect it at this point. That's crazy! On a game platform that used to be like heavily leaning towards kids. And there's a special trick on Nintendo specifically as well that makes it easier to happen. As they've explained, so many games will release a bundle and set their discount for 28 days long, the maximum amount of time you can be on discount, explained. They will then create a new bundle with a different or identical configuration of game and DLC and set it for release the exact day the previous bundle sale expired, rather than waiting for sale cooldowns. This causes it to constantly be near the top of new releases and always be in discounts, at the expense of dozens of hundreds of real games that people worked really hard on. So not only do they manipulate the store in terms of getting on the store in the first place, but they also manipulate how the store works to stay at the top of it and stay in the newest games. So it's why you see it more often on Nintendo Switch. But it does exist elsewhere. Yeah. It just sucks that more and more of the storefronts are getting completely overrun by AI slop. And if we had more manual checks on every game or some sort of filter like Steam, I wonder if we could somehow get away from having it as often. But it's definitely not what consumers want, is what we know for sure. Like, people have been unhappy, whether they care about ethics of Gen AI or not. People are not happy with the quality of Gen AI. Like, I don't think that's anything that's contested anymore. People are mad that there's a lot of really bad games out there on the stores. And one thing that I really wanted to talk about as well, I'm not going to read the rest of the article, but it is really interesting if you guys want to go and look it up. I think you get the point, just how easy it is to put them on there now. Which goes into another thing that I wanted to show. But I think it's crazy that we have these games getting automatically approved and stuff, and then we have stuff like Hyperdimension Neptunia, where there's games not coming out in the West because of swimsuits in-game. So, if it's that easy to get almost anything just thrown up on the eShop, it shows how much they went out of their way to just not allow those. And there are people saying it might have been because of performance issues, not necessarily the swimsuit costume, so I don't know for sure. But the fact that there's been more and more things like in that genre getting banned on Switch, and then we had very late in development, you know, the situation with Tokyo Clan Pool, where they were forced to suddenly release it censored. Like, to me, the fact that they're going out of their way to ban stuff like Neptunia, but they're obviously not checking for performance quality with AI slop, or even if it meets TOS. And there's a really good example that I can use to show that. I just have to get it. Hold on. It really shows that we're in an era of like games being released where not only do we have to worry about like AAA games sometimes being slop, but then you also have all of these games where they're being made knowingly. Like, there's not a lot of money put into them. It's just flat out games that people are releasing without even trying. It's such a weird situation. Like, they know that it's nothing but garbage. And here's one example of a game that got passed on the PlayStation Store, because I genuinely think that it is the best example. And that's true as well. If performance was an issue, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet would have been declined. Because that game, like, no matter what you want to say, I thought it was a fun game. Was it a good game? It's hard to say because of how it ran, but I liked it. I thought it was a fun game. But I cannot defend its performance. Is the West banning Neptunia? There's a new game, I think it's a trilogy, was it? That's not coming out in the West. And that is the suspected reason. I don't think we ever got the reason for sure, so I could be wrong. But that was what a lot of people were suspecting, at least. But anyway, I wanted to show you an example of one of the games that got through! So, on the PlayStation Store, because this game is totally allowed and it has a T rating. An example of AI slop that somehow you know that this game was not manually checked. It's the best example I've ever seen to show that it's not been manually checked, and that's why I wanted to use this one to talk about this point. Rated teen, we have Sex Shop Simulator. Featuring AI-generated blonde cat girl. Yeah, we should Steam it. We should Steam. It's not on Steam, I don't think, but we should stream it. I can, but I don't know if I will. I'm gonna be honest. The fact that it's rated teen, I could probably stream this, but also, part of me wants to just to look at how bad it is, but part of me doesn't want to give the devs any money because I don't want to encourage this. And the more people buy it to laugh at, the more they're making money and they'll do it again. But but also, this is literally like the best example of the system being broken that I've ever seen. And if this isn't a turning point that people finally like wake up and see what's going on with these stores, I don't know what is. Anyway, game and legal info. Let's look into the description of Sex Shop Simulator. Welcome to Sex Shop Simulator, where the business of pleasure is yours to control. As the proprietor of a burgeoning adult store, you'll delve into the dynamic world of sex toys, lingerie, and everything in between. This isn't just a game about sales. It's about creating a safe, welcoming space for all your customers' desires, which in theory actually sounds kind of like a neat idea. Like, that sounds like a good concept for like an adult game maybe, but it shouldn't be rated teen. Step behind the counter of your very own adult boutique in Sex Shop Simulator. Man, it's repeating some words, by the way. A lot of buzz for it. Just makes me agree that this description was probably also written by AI. But anyway, manage a thriving business, cater to diverse client needs, and navigate the intriguing world of adult retail. Expand your inventory, enhance customer experience, and build the ultimate adult emporium. It's just literally using like it's using a thesaurus to repeat the same description. Key features: diverse inventory management. Stock a variety of products from essential sex toys to exotic novelties. Keep track of what sells, anticipate market trends, and respond to customer feedback to optimize your stock and boost sales. Customer satisfaction. Interact with a wide array of characters, each with unique preferences and needs. From couples seeking to spice up their relationship to individuals exploring their sexuality, tailor your approach to meet their specific demands. Again, which actually sounds kind of neat in theory, but not like this. Store customization. Design your shop to reflect your style and attract more customers. Choose from different themes and decorations, from classy and elegant to bold and adventurous, ensuring that your shop stands out in the neighborhood. Yeah, you can hear as I go that it just sounds really AI generated. Ethical challenges. Navigate the ethical aspects of the business, from age verification to the responsible marketing of adult content. You shouldn't let minors in the store in the first place, for starters, but make decisions that reflect your values and observe the laws that guide the industry. Expansion opportunities. Grow from a small boutique to a chain of stores, or open an online shop to reach a wider audience. Diversify your business with additional services like online consultations or private shopping sessions. What does private shopping sessions even mean? In Sex Shop Simulator, every decision impacts your path to success. Manage your resources wisely, understand your clientele, and maintain a high standard of service to become the premier destination for adult products. Your entrepreneurial journey in the adult industry starts here. Are you ready to embrace the challenge and lead your business to new heights? Rated T for teen. Would you rate this T for teen, employees? I'm not so sure I'd rate it T for teen. Like, I'm sure there's definitely teens that would find this and play it. Like, I can't confidently say that I wouldn't have somehow found this and played it as a teen. Because, you know, you find things on the internet and you do things on the internet. Like, I can't say I wouldn't, but it shouldn't be encouraged or marketed or, like, allowed, really. And for mature, yeah. Like, even if it's not a porn game, the themes that it's going for is very clearly more adult. So it's a difference between like tongue-in-cheek, like hee hee ha ha, and like this is actually like this is the point of the game, and a lot of minors might learn things playing this game that they'll probably learn on the internet anyway, but like, do you really want to be the place they learn that? I don't know. It's very clearly an adult game, you know what I mean? Like, even if it's not porn, it's an adult game. It's for an adult audience. Like, it should not be rated T for teen. Anyway, yeah, it's certainly something, and it shows that the AI slop problem, it very much verifies a lot of the theories with IGN's article about, you know, how stuff just isn't checked properly, or might be checked like once per company, things like that, because this does not seem right. And I will stop my rant and we will play the game now. But that, I was very, very mad about all that, and I know that we talk a lot about like censorship and AI slop, so I thought you guys would also want to like look into that a bit, because it kind of ties a bunch of the like loose ends that we were like, how does this happen together? And if all of that is correct, it makes a lot of sense.